So the 11th season of Archer recently came out. I've done a review in my previous video on it. Archer is a spy comedy, and as you know with comedies, since a lot of the seasons are very consistent, that can be really hard to rank them. Although I had trouble ranking these, I did come up with a ranking and I'm going to share that with you in this video. Coming in at 11th and last place, easily, we have season 10. You know, I really liked all these things that were happening in Archer's Coma, where it was giving us these different environments, different scenarios that these characters are in, but I just didn't enjoy it when they took it to space. Everything else, it had been on Earth, you know, it had been somewhat realistic. I'm not saying this is unrealistic, because we don't really know what's in space, but it just strayed too far and was too different from previous seasons. And yeah, I know it is in his head, but I just couldn't enjoy it as it didn't really feel like Archer to me. On paper, this is the most bizarre season. As I mentioned, it's in space, but everything that they do in this season is very cliche of space, or has been done in a movie or TV show before, so we're not really seeing anything different. So even though they're in space, it's actually quite boring. Yeah, and so for me, having season 10 in last place was an absolutely no-brainer. There's a fine margin between most of these seasons on this list, and you'll see in the percentage, but this one, I believe, was the biggest margin between the one above it. Coming in at 10th place, we have season 9. This is another season which takes place in Archer's head during his coma. Although it is an interesting environment that they took their adventures to, it was still quite boring for a large amount of this season. Don't get me wrong, it still wasn't anywhere near as boring as season 10, but this season had 8 episodes. It's a perfect amount of time to have this long dragged out story between each episode, but for about 4 episodes of the 8, they had so much unnecessary stuff which made it boring. I mentioned this is a very short season, but they seemed short on ideas. I feel like they knew where they wanted to start and where they wanted to end, but they didn't know what to put in the middle of that, so there was a lot of just sitting around, unnecessary dialogue, all that kind of stuff. And I think maybe because they have so many characters, and with these dream realities, they like to put characters into certain people's bodies which they wouldn't normally be, like a job they wouldn't normally do. I feel like they spent too much time on that, or they felt like they needed to do that more than a decent storyline. You know, the ending was fun, the last like 3 episodes was really fun, but during the middle bit was just very boring and just felt like everyone was just sitting around for ages. To many people's surprise, actually coming in at number 9, we have season 1. One which started this whole series off. And I'm not going to lie to you, at the start they didn't have everything sorted. The comedy wasn't too funny, the characters, although they were unique in their own ways, they didn't actually gel properly together. I didn't think right from the beginning. They took a bit of time throughout this series to kind of get that good chemistry. And to be honest, this is just a pretty average show. You know, I started on this one obviously because it's the first season, and I was like, oh, I don't see why this show is so special. Obviously, as time went on, I saw more seasons, I understood why people liked it so much. But it hadn't found its feet yet, and it did lay some solid elements for a foundation. It was not the complete product, so that's why I have season 1 so far down on this list. Coming in at 8th place, we have season 8. This was actually quite a fun series, not going to lie. It took the opportunity from being in Archer's Coma to try out some new things. It is like an early 90s setting with all these characters as different people. You know, Archer's a private investigator, Cyril's a corrupt police officer. So just some interesting things, and just changes it up in a really fresh way, which I really enjoyed. However, the storyline itself, the main plotline, was a bit unclear, it was a bit messy, and the execution looked great on paper, but it wasn't done to great effect in the actual final product. And I'm not gonna lie, by this point I was really sick of seeing Barry forced into every season. Though some moments were funny, overall I was a little bit disappointed with the execution, but still I was really happy to see a new direction and this kind of scenario with these characters. Coming in at 7th place, we have the newly released Season 11. As I mentioned, this was the most recent addition to this list, and although this season overall wouldn't change how this series will play out, it was still quite a solid addition. This is the season where Archer comes out of his coma. For a full season, he has to have a walking stick or a cane. It goes back to the early seasons of just having singular missions per episode. It doesn't have one continuous mission throughout the season. And although Archer was at its best when it did go to one mission per season, it was actually quite fresh going back these days. You know, the episodes were solid, they're not going to blow your mind away. It had some interesting things where people had moved on or changed since Archer was in his coma, and I found some of that really interesting. I just can't say more, just a solid season, and that it felt good to be back in the field with Archer outside of his coma. Coming in at 6th place, we have Season 5. This is such a weird season, but it oddly works. It's just such a random season, there's so much that goes on that can kind of make it feel a bit messy, but because it's so random and there's so much going on, you kind of just go with it and you don't question it, because otherwise you wouldn't enjoy it as much. It has some of the best character moments, whether that's showing sides of them we didn't know, whether that's sharing emotional moments. I had a lot of fun with it. It was great to see them bond more. Some characters come closer, and yeah, it's such a random season, which I can't really pinpoint something that stands out, just the randomness of it compared to all these other seasons. Coming in at 5th place, we have Season 6. Once again, some of these seasons are quite hard to speak for a long time about, as they're just singular mission episodes throughout the whole season, just like this one is. Like, every single episode was solid. Had many solid episodes throughout it. It didn't have a continuous story throughout the whole season, as I mentioned quite a lot in this video. Just had singular mission episodes, and all of them were entertaining and unique. By this point, I fully loved all the characters and the comedy that they were going for in this whole series. It took me a while to adjust to it. This isn't when I just fell in love with them, this is just when I was fully used to them by now. So yeah, a very solid season which just has a lot of solid episodes in it. Coming in at 4th place, we have Season 2. I mentioned the problems I had with Season 1, but this one, they actually did begin to have some of that character chemistry. The comedy did improve, and the missions were more interesting. It improves on all those negatives from the first season, which you really like to see from a show. And it ties in this interesting plot about the KGB throughout the whole season. It wasn't the main focus, it was just there in the background, it didn't oversaturate anything. So having it there in the background made it feel more real, I guess. It made it really interesting, as it wasn't just these singular missions the whole time, you actually had something else to worry about or to think about that you know was going to happen. And this season, just the way it was done, it set up a lot of potential for seasons to come after it, which, as if you've counted which seasons I haven't done, you'll know it does pay off. Coming in at 3rd place, we have Season 7. This felt to me like the most grounded and real season on this whole list. Maybe besides the clone robots. The character relationships throughout this season is very strong. Felt very real once again. It wasn't just the stuff for laughs, you could actually feel the pain or the happiness. This season is just so much fun. Even when it is focused on that long storyline throughout every episode, they have some fun stuff which goes on, and I love the addition of J.K. Simmons in this season. And this season ended in a way which you wouldn't have expected. It was a very unique way, and it set up for some interesting seasons to come after that. Coming in at 2nd place, we have Season 4. After establishing what it was going to go for in Season 3, Season 4 pretty much follows the same template and does another great job. It delivers some great individual episodes. The opening episode actually has a great cameo in it for the first half of it, and just how it ties in with the storyline in that episode. I personally haven't seen what that cameo comes from. I know exactly what it is, but I haven't seen it, so I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much as many, but even I could understand that it was an iconic cameo. But this is around prime time for Archer. Obviously there's a season which is ranked above this one, but you've probably gathered what that is. And if you haven't gathered what that season is, then I'll just tell you now that coming in at first place is Season 3. I mentioned Season 2 left a lot of potential relying there to happen for later seasons, and they picked that up and executed it extremely well. So many great episodes happened in this, many great individual missions. That's what you like in a season. On top of that, great comedy. You got to like these characters better. This is when I started to like them properly. It took me a while, but once Season 3 came around, they had good chemistry. I understand what the comedy they were like, what they were going for was like now. It wasn't just random stuff. I understand them more now, and yeah, just a really great season. You know, Season 1 they weren't really sure what they were going for. Season 2 improved and found a direction they were going for, and Season 3 they executed that. So there is my ranking of the 11 Archer seasons. I'm going to chuck them up on the screen now, and just so you can compare them side to side at how close they were in quality. Please let me know in the comments what your ranking would be if you have seen any of them. And on top of that, I'd really appreciate if you liked and subscribed. But yeah, anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in my next video.